I think everything's working fine in my new abode. See if the notifications go out and everybody's awake this time of the day, or or the evening, or whatever time of the day it is where everybody's watching. For me, it is 8 o'clock in the morning, and I have just absorbed a lot of new information from Wizards of the Coast. From the Dungeons and Dragons announcements for our next iteration or evolution, don't say edition of the game. It was so very obvious that all of them had been schooled to not say the word edition. It was very funny. In fact, when Jeremy Crawford and was sitting down and he said edition, he almost flinched that he'd said edition. I could see that they'd all been very schooled. Hey everybody, I'm back. What have we here? This is me, and we're about to get heavily into a lot of the announcements and stuff that I've just watched for you, and I'll give you a summary of some of the little, I've taken a lot of post-it notes here, and we're going to be talking about those. And yeah, lot of very heavy info has come out. I am very pleased. First of all, I'd like to, I feel validated and listened to that Wizards of the Coast has finally stopped this cloak and dagger bullshit, and they've given us a full announcement of all of the books they're going to be releasing for 2023. Thank you. I feel so encouraged. I might actually pre-order some of them. I swear to God. Yeah. And it's, Planescape. We've got Planescape coming up. We've got Bigby's lots and lots of D&D options. We've got the playtest packages for the next iteration of Dungeons and Dragons. This is basically a return to everything that worked with the playtest packages for 5th edition, which was originally called D&D Next, and now we've got one D&D, which is leading us into a fully backwards compatible new edition of the Dungeons and Dragons core rule sets. The new core rule books are being formulated with our feedback in a series of Unearthed Arcana articles that will be released month by month, and playtest packages that you can sign up for. And essentially, when 5th edition first arrived from 4th edition, I was heavily involved in all of that sort of stuff, and I did a lot of I had bound together all the stuff, and I had all the D&D Next stuff, and was adding to it as it went and evolved, and it was a really exciting time. So I'm super pumped. So hello everybody. I'm gonna pop over here. First, I'm gonna run an ad slot for those of you who don't have the thingy, and I've got lots of new options that YouTube has given me. So bear with me, and I'm just gonna pop out the chat while I'm doing that, so that I can see everybody. There we go. And I also have a viewer activity alert thingy here, which allows me a better access to see super chats when they pop up. So if you do have any super chat comments and things, they'll get my attention immediately, because this is my job. I'm a full-time YouTuber, for those of you who don't know me. Hello, my name's AJ Pickett. And yeah, let's talk about it. You have no tasty beverage. Yeah, get yourself a tasty beverage, everybody. We're about to get deeply nerdy. Dragonlance is, we've already seen this. Basically, it's a segment of the Dragonlance story. Dragonlance has always been an extremely railroady setting. So the Dragonlance is essentially, it was born from somebody else's campaign, and it's essentially fan fiction for a campaign that took place. And so it's always been really intended to be, you play the part of these main characters in the story, and with this, it's no sort of exception. The campaign is also being designed to operate in conjunction with a physical war game board game set. It's not obligatory; you don't have to run it that way, but it's really intended to run that way. And we've seen iterations and attempts at that earlier on with the battle system and things like that, with very early editions of Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, there's a super chat. Thanks, BNC. Thank you very much. It almost feels like, Breeze here. This is my new abode, by the way. I've fully moved into the new place. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with me for very low activity on my channel for the last 2 months. I'm back in action again. I'm producing and cranking out content, probably even more than I have before. And yeah. Moonring, hello everybody. Jesse Kelly. Okay, so let's get stuck into these chats, these post-it notes that I've got here. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Bree is actually I live so quietly. Like I don't have music playing, I don't have TVs on in the background or anything like that. So Bree lives in absolute silence most of the time, so she can hear every little thing. She loves hunting mice and stuff. So when I start talking to nobody, she gets very like upset and concerned, and so she'll start like clawing at like something. It's very funny. Okay, so Spelljammer here, Spelljammer combat. We've already got examples of ship-to-ship combat rules from Saltmarsh and I think Xanathar's Guide to Anything, and we've got a few rules from the Dungeons & Dragons Core Dungeon Master's Guide, and it's the problem that we see all across 5th edition, in that the Gazetta style of products that they put out, where they want to put a little bit of everything in every supplement they put out, including adventure books and things like that, which means that the optional rules that they include in those, which quickly become, we assume you use those as core rules, are scattered across all the books. And so we have what's called the edition drift, where everything's like all over the place. And so this is now where they've reached the point where they need to consolidate and incorporate all of the core rules, exactly like Pathfinder has just done with their release of 2nd edition Pathfinder. So essentially what they've done is they've just taken all the stuff that's developed organically in the game, and they're now pulling it together. But this is their opportunity to address a lot of the things in the game, and we've seen some very, very juicy info. Okay, so limiting monster crits is one of the major things they're showing as an option, possible option with the next iteration of the game, where essentially crits should be in the character's purview, not the monster's purview, because monsters can already recharge abilities. So if you score a critical hit with a monster, it may automatically recharge one of its major abilities. So that's interesting. And static, people who use static damage in their combat, where they don't roll dice for it, they just use static stuff. Critical hits for monsters don't make any sense. What do? You just double the static damage. Ho-hum, kind of boring. And it also means it's very, very dangerous for low-level play, where monsters can score critical hits and one-shot a character. So they want to avoid that, and I'm fully on board with that because that's something I already homebrew in my game. The character options, of course, everything is about paring the core rulebooks down to generic examples of every race, so they're not tied into specific settings. So you don't have mountain orcs and shield orcs, mountain dwarves and shield dwarves, for instance. You've just got dwarves, and then specific setting books or character classes and things will then expand on that. So if you have a particular Forgotten Realms supplement, then Forgotten Realms sub-race character class becomes optional. And where we got the Mordenkainen's Guide to the Multiverse, Monsters of the Multiverse, that's where we find all the different options for different world settings and things. So cool. We got some major inclusions of core races in the next iteration of the game, such as full-blooded orcs. And what else? We've got a new race, which is basically the version of the divine version of tieflings. So tieflings are now getting the expansion that we've seen in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and stuff, where we've got all the different options that you have. So tieflings become much more diverse. Humans can now be medium-sized or small-sized, because small-sized humans exist. And we've got lots more options for the origins instead of your background and stuff. So we've got biological and cultural differences. So you can have parents of different races and have lots of different more combinations and freedom to combine and make customizations for the origins of your character. Major thing that we saw in the latest Spelljammer box set is that all of the two backgrounds come with feats attached to them, and that is something that's going to carry through into the next edition of the game. Feats are going to be included in background options, but the feats are now going to be split up into levels. So one of the major things we're going to see is you will immediately be able to tell a feat is first level because it won't include an attribute point bonus. And higher level feats are the sort of things we unlock which make your character awesome. But first level feats are things like you're a healer or something like that, or So we've got a healer feat and we've got a musician feat. And musician allows people to give party members inspiration. And inspiration is now going to be integrated more as a core mechanic that a lot of different options are going to be using to encourage you to use inspiration points as a mechanic in the game, because too often people were forgetting about inspiration because it wasn't tied into any specific real like mechanics that made sense with your character and stuff. It's sort of additional tacked on feature that was optional, and a lot of people didn't use it, but they kind of want us to. And what else? We've got critical hits can get inspiration points added to your character, and that's crits on not just martial attacks, but it's also crits for skill rolls and things. And they've finally acknowledged that ability checks and saving throws and things can get critical 1s and critical 20s, so automatic failures and automatic successes, which is like, fine, that's what everybody was doing in the first place. Sage of Candlekeep, thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, inspiration points are great. Any Spelljammer monsters catch my eyes? I mean, all monsters catch my eyes, Moonring. They definitely do. I wouldn't say I've moved comfortably in. I've dealt with injuries and exhaustion and expenses and all sorts of stuff, but it's been fairly smooth. It's an option. So monsters not being able to crit, it's different. It's an option, right? So these are play testing. So if you don't like something, absolutely give them feedback on it. So these are playtest packages where they are giving you options and we get to choose. So we give them feedback and those votes make a huge difference to the products that they put out. So the same way that they built 5th edition, they're going the right way. They're going back to the community, the people who actually play the game, and they're saying, what are you doing and what do you want us to make for you? So other things we've got here are the Ardling are the upper race version of like tieflings. So the Ardlings incorporate Gardenals and the celestial sort of servitor races and things like that. One of the things that most notable about the Ardling is essentially they are animal-faced beings that represent like gods like Thoth and Horus and the Gardenals and things like that, who have quite often those animal visages. It's not like furry stuff. It actually makes sense for the lore and stuff like that, that these divine beings would not just all look like angels, because quite often the angels don't look like humanoids anyway. They look more like animal forms. I haven't seen a lot of new oozes. Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, Mac Nerdy. It's like 2nd edition. We basically just pick and choose what we use anyway. What I'm really happy about is that they haven't just loaded more feats. They've been very careful and said, look, we are aware that feats can get away from us, and so we're now diversifying those feats into level caps and level bonuses. The other major thing that they're doing is they're divorcing the spell lists from character class specifically, and they're giving universal spell lists for arcane, divine, and primal. This makes perfect sense for the people who played 4th edition, where we had savage options. We had primal powers, right? So this is something that worked very well for that, because primal power is separate from arcane. Arcane is like drawing on the power of the flow of the multiverse's cosmic forces. Divine is obviously from the astral plane and divine powers, and primal is from the animate spirit of elements themselves and nature. So it makes perfect sense. And basically character classes will then have nuances that they add on to that. So they take so character classes will have meta magic feats and special options and additional spell powers and things that they can use, drawing from those universal spell lists. The Ardlings. I haven't seen the spelling for it, but it sounds like Ardlings. They haven't called it. So D&D Next wasn't called, 5th edition at the time. It was the playtest package. So it's now under the banner of One D&D. So that's what the working title of the playtest is at the moment. We don't know if it, I mean, basically it's going to be called 5.5 because it's backwards compatible. It's not an entirely new edition. It's just a consolidation and expansion on the multi-option sort of more options that we have. So more homebrewy sort of feel to it, which is great. I'm really looking forward to it. And we've seen a lot of expansions like, the Magic the Gathering announcements. For those of you, like Warhammer 40k is pairing up with Magic the Gathering. That just absolutely, I was watching that in bed as soon as it announced, and I just literally sat up in bed and went, what? Out loud, that Warhammer 40k is coming to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. I'm like, what? That's like, that's my dream come true. I never thought it would happen. There's no mentions about Dark Sun, but Planescape and expansions on Sigil, they called it Sigil instead of Sigil, which actually caused me to flinch, but that's okay. I'm pedantic that way. Yeah, so like Pathfinder First Edition is compatible with D&D 3 and 3.5. Yeah. It's not a huge departure from the core mechanics, but there are certain things which are being fixed and addressed. What else have we got here? So we've got additional background options. So the Cultist and the Pilgrim will be included. Players can regenerate inspiration points without the DM granting those inspiration points is one of the major things they're testing out. And a lot of the stuff to do with the critical hits and damage and stuff. What else have we got? Custom options, more half races. We've got the floating ability score bonuses that we've seen already. So you get a +2 and a +1 that you get to assign where you want. That's a core mechanic, obviously, because that's what we see in the new Spelljammer box set. I've been looking through the Spelljammer box set. Yeah, it's pretty bare bones, but as I said, and I predicted in a response to Dungeon Dad on Twitter, that I see this as they're putting in a supplement that's already designed to go with the new core books. And yeah, the announcement confirmed that immediately. So what we're going to be seeing is they're not including core mechanics for ship combat and stuff because they're probably going to include that in the new Dungeon Master's Guide. So they're basically not pre-printing something that they're planning on printing anyway. Also, now that D&D Beyond has been acquired by Wizards of the Coast, they can now pair their physical products with their digital products. So I'm looking at, I can start seeing them giving us codes for discounts on digital products and stuff. And also we're going to finally get a official VTT, virtual tabletop, which they're using the Unreal Engine for, which, okay, I was looking to them expanding into, we're definitely going to see assisted augmented reality glasses becoming far more common in use. I've got my Tilt 5 system, which I backed on Kickstarter, which is going to be shipping to me soon. And I'm looking forward to showing you how that works, because it will literally look like I'm in a Star Trek movie playing holo chess on the Millennium Falcon. That's exactly what it looks like, as long as you're wearing the glasses and observing it. So yeah, no word on Dunamancy. Nothing's very specific. Just lots of big announcements, particularly with Magic the Gathering is going back. It's the 30th anniversary of Magic the Gathering. It's also a big 35th anniversary of the Companions of the Hall. So we've got a new Drist book coming out. We've got new covers for all the existing book sets and things coming out. We've got a visual diary of the Companions of the Hall, which looks nice. Because I'm a big fan of those books. I don't care whether people are very interested in, that sort of stuff and bemoaning their over concentration on the Sword Coast. IP's got to start somewhere, Does the new Spelljammer stuff work well with second edition stuff, or is it all new? There's certain aspects of it which, basically it's all of the stuff that you get in second edition pared down to the fairly basic fifth edition rules. And if you have those second edition resources, then you don't really need to worry about them providing you with the extra lore and stuff. You can just use this existing stuff. The major difference is they've gotten rid of crystal spheres and phlogiston. Now every star system is essentially a pocket inside of the astral sea. The astral sea is the phlogiston background, and when you travel far enough outside of your wild space system, you reach the border, everything goes silver, and you cross over into the astral plane, the astral sea, I should say. So it's quite different, but we've already seen in the lore of the game that the phlogiston has been switched off before. So this is not something new. And actually, there's quite a few people who have never really gelled very well with the crystal spheres and the phlogiston because it's just too sort of like gonzo, too sort of high fantasy. And this, it's workable. It doesn't really change much. The major objection I've seen to it is what's to stop creatures from the astral plane crossing over that border and attacking prime material worlds, like what happens if an astral dreadnought, for instance, just decides to float into Toril realm space and attack the world of Toril. Well, why not? They've got no reason to do that because Tharasdan didn't design them that way. But they could certainly hang out at the border and make sure that people don't escape. So yeah, there's a list of books for Dungeons & Dragons coming up in 2023. I'm going to be going over those in some detail later in a sort of preview video. But yeah, I do encourage you to go to the Dungeons & Dragons official YouTube channel and watch those announcements. It's mostly Magic the Gathering stuff, but whenever you see Ginny D pop up, she'll be talking about Wizards of the Coast stuff. And it's great to see her as an official representative of our Dungeons & Dragons community because she's a YouTuber like me. Exactly, McPheen. Yeah, you've been running Spelljammer, and the first thing you did was make a change in the nature of the phlogiston. Exactly, yeah. So they're just accepting the fact that most people homebrew this stuff, and what you see is a reflection of what the majority of people are doing. And that's exactly what all this feedback is for, is to see what's the actual majority of people are doing. So yeah, aside from the vocal few who bitch and moan about things on social media, giving a proper reflection of what the community is actually doing. So the silent majority who may not necessarily be on Twitter every day harping on about, crystal spheres and things because they've got an axe to grind. But these are not necessarily the people who are buying the new edition anyway. These are old school players who have no interest in buying another iteration of 5th edition. And so they don't really have any financial influence on it. And so their opinions are carrying too much weight. So this is where they get basically to sort it back and take on the truth of the average. Thank you, Tony H. You are fabulous. Thank you for your work. Oh, thank you, man. Thanks, Ben C. D&D movie talk looks like it will be fun. Yeah, I really have nothing to say about it until I see it. I am an eternal optimist, and I just love any sort of fantasy and sci-fi movie. I've watched all of the 1980s stuff right up until I've pretty much seen every science fiction movie there is that's in a discernible language, and I'm extremely just happy to have anything Dungeons and Dragons thrown at me. I don't care what it is. Chris Pine, I particularly like him as an actor, and I'm really looking forward to it being a slapstick sort of heist movie set in on the Sword Coast and beyond. Also, we see that the workings for the D&D movie has been in the works ever since the Icewind Dale expansion, because they built the prison there specifically as a resource that they could put into the movie. So this has been in development for years now and tied in very closely with Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards of the Coast have been releasing products and stuff. This is kind of what happened when I was working on as a consultant for the Dark Alliance video game. And I put out a video on the Uthkart tribe. That, if you go back and timestamp that's exactly when I was handing them information. So that was my research work that I was handing over to them and said, look, I'll just make a video about the Uthkart and you can watch that and give that to all your game devs and they can watch that and get their info from it. So that's pretty much what Wizard of the Coast just did with a movie studio. Battlestar Galactica D&D version, that'd be cool. It's a little bit empty though. I mean, if you don't want to take if you're not playing the role of a specific, Viper fighter or something like that, how exciting would that setting actually be? Well, we're stuck on the ship and we're jumping, and how are we going to deal with starvation today? But there's lots more options. Look a bit slimmer. Yeah, I am slimmer. I've lost about 20 kg or something since you saw me last, I think. Yeah. Autocorrect is a pain. Yeah, sorry, Morgan. I can speak fluent typo. It's fine. Yeah, there's a lot of people who don't play the game or are not supporting the modern game who are very, very vocal on social groups. And also just an address to the people on the Sages groups that I'm an admin for on Facebook. that dying platform. There's a lot of people who seem to be very, very ignorant suddenly of me saying don't edition bash. They know exactly what I'm talking about when I say edition bash. So the Sages groups on Facebook that I admin, if you want to go and join those, that's where we discuss law and research. I'm a law specialist, so obviously the Facebook group that I'm involved with is not like a meme posting. It's not a poll posting. It's not like making all these sort of clickbaity posts and things like that. We actually research old material from all of the editions and the modern game as well, and we integrate it and provide resources and research for people who ask questions. So if you're new to the game and have an interest in the lore, those are the Facebook groups for you. And essentially, I just police it and say, look, if you've got a problem with 5th edition, go tell the wind. Nobody here cares. We're interested in the entire game, all of the D&D lore from all of the editions of the game. We don't care what particular mechanics you play. We don't care. If you've got something to contribute, if you've got some sort of debate between the lore of different editions, that's fine. But if you're just here to say that 5th edition sucks, I'm only going to play 2nd edition, we don't want to hear it anymore. Because the people who play older editions are the minority of players these days, and they need to really, really understand that. Like 5% of you, something like that. Don't forget, Spelljammer and Planescape, that was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. So the modern players of the game, they don't have any of that language and stuff, So us older players of the game, it's our opportunity to share all the complexity and wonder and stuff of the campaign setting and give it to them now. Like putting out a video on the Scroll, for instance, I had no idea that they weren't going to include the Scroll in the Spelljammer box set, but they're not there. Obviously, the Scroll are out in wild space somewhere floating through space in their 2 hard baskets, but, whatever. Also, they seem to have omitted orcs and elves from the Warhammer material in the Magic the Gathering set. Whether that's a conflict of interest or maybe it's a little bit too confusing with Dungeons and Dragons, but they've concentrated on the Necrons, Chaos, the Tyranids, and the Imperium of Man. I'd say they'll probably put out additional sets that have other factions as well. Thanks, Gen X 1987. One of my crew, Gen X, shout out. Due to there being so little about the Far Realm, I wanted to ask you this. How much of a threat would the Far Realm be of invading the Nine Hells? How much worse would it be than the Blood War? Extremely worse. Essentially, the Far Realm is about shattering the barriers between different parallel dimensions. And parallel dimensions can be alternate timelines. They can be like parallel universes that look exactly like yours. So there's a duplicate of you. Very Rick and Morty storylines can be on the border of the Far Realm. So the Far Realm really represents parallel dimensions where the laws of physics went very differently. So these are different timelines where things evolved very differently in the multiverses that there are. And the barriers between the multiverses in the Far Realm break down and turn into a soup at a certain point. And this is also the plane of origin where psychic power comes from. So and you've got a lot of elder entities that are not able to exist in the usual primaterial plane or the astral plane or the elemental chaos, and they are stuck in these alternate planes of existence trying to influence other parallel dimensions. So this is where you get multi-dimensional factions and things like that. Like the Chaoti are humanoid sorcerers from the primaterial world who went over into the Far Realm and became naturalized to it. One of the really, really cool supplements that has come out recently is by one of the original authors of the Forgotten Realms, and that's Eric Boyd. Eric, if you ever see any content by Ed Greenwood, Eric Boyd, or George Krashos on the DM's Guild or Drive Through RPG, go and buy it, because that's essentially they're still writing lore for Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms, and it's really, really in-depth lore that you just won't get from the 5th edition lore writers at the moment, because they're concentrating on building the franchise and then expanding on lore and stuff for people. But they're really starting to go down the road of, here are tools for you to homebrew your games to your narrative purposes, and I'm okay with that. So the supplement, The Lord of the End of Everything, is basically the subject and inspiration for a series of videos that I'm going to put out, which are going to totally change the way that you see the god Jurgle, who is a spell weaver, and the origin of the Nether Scrolls and the Netherese Empire, the fall of the Netherese Empire, what Karsus was doing, the introduction of the concept of heavy magic and super heavy magic, which is actually solid magic that was developed during the Age of Netheril, and just how like overbearingly arrogant Karsus really was, and how you'll kind of be rooting for him to die. It's about halfway through the video, and just like the stuff that immortals get up to, and the fact that Jurgle was like a god for a purpose. Like he rose to deityhood for a particular reason, and then decided that he was going to give it away. And really it was because he was locked into this life cycle of being a spellweaver. There's so much to cover. It's incredibly dense material and really changes the cosmological aspect of everything. Also, the spellweavers really addresses this idea of previous iterations of the multiverse. This is not multiverses that existed before. There's no such thing as before beyond universes, multiverses. What happens is somebody goes back in time, resets everything, and changes everything that comes after. So that's another iteration of the multiverse. So the previous iteration of the multiverse disappears because the existing events which caused it no longer happened. We see things like a sub-iteration of that, like the Mind Flayers go back in time and invent themselves, therefore eliminating their original origin, but their new origin becomes their travel back in time, for instance, because they're a multiversal time-traveling species. We have instances of other groups that went back in time as well. In fact, I think even Karsus went back in time something like 600 years, grabbed some NPCs and brought them into the future. So it's very interesting, and that's where we start looking at what did the Spellweavers do to the multiverse, what is built into the multiverse, what are the foundations of magic in the multiverse, and what is the origin of the astral plane and the primordial chaos, what is the nature of primal entities and deities, and yeah, that sort of stuff are upcoming videos that I'm looking at. And at the moment, I'm working on a complete guide to alchemy, and I may possibly put out a PDF on my spring store. I don't know. We'll see. There might be a lot of material in here, and yeah, there are some really good guides to 5th edition alchemy, and I don't want to really step on their toes, but yeah, point you in the right direction of any resources. So if anybody does have any really good third-party resources for alchemy, send me private messages. I'd really appreciate a point in the right direction so I can pick up some of those and do some really good research for you. Morgan, thank you. D&D Gundam or Battletech? Well, I would say that the Spelljammer has got what you're looking for in Gundam style stuff, and the Witchlight Marauder and various other things are stuff that I'm going to be making videos about for you, because I've had some requests to talk about that sort of stuff. And that's like world-destroying biological war machines that were developed during a catastrophic war between the Astral Elves and the Skro, who are basically space orcs. Yeah. So that's some interesting stuff. Hey, Josh Bunton, member for 20 months. Thank you. Moonhurst. Hey, AJ. Now there seems to be a lot going on with Wizard of the Coast product, and of course, we want to hear what you think about them. Oops. I need to zip down my chat there. Think about them, but what about your project, like the book and other stuff you have in line? Essentially, my book is like a back project of mine, because I make my main income from making videos, not publishing books. Like, publishing books would be a side project that I would enjoy, but it's not actually to generate money. The main income that I have is making Dungeons and Dragons lore videos, live streaming with you, and things like that. So that's my main focus. I'm not the sort of YouTuber who's going to be putting out a lot of, like, I'm not like Matt Colville or anything like that. At best, I'll probably use my platform to allow other people to publish material and stuff and sell it online, like Mr. X does. My DM homebrewed a dimensional interloper that appeared as a new moon, but it was a water world, which was later revealed to be an ocean around a kraken being that was attacking the world. That's excellent. Thoughts on the Crown of Stars helm in 5th edition and why it might have been included in it? Probably because they just hadn't got around to it. They would have had limited space. Dungeons and Dragons Evangelion, yeah. Thanks, Moonring. Member for 18 months. Congratulations. What's the best way to make a fictional culture? One of the best ways is to look at, like, if you go on Twitter or something like that, or Instagram and stuff, there's usually world building guide checklists, like all the different aspects that go into a world building guide. One of the funniest and easiest ways to make it a unique culture is you just take something which is fundamental to a culture and take it away. Like, for instance, what if they're all allergic to metal? And so they have no metal in their culture whatsoever, whereas the world around them has metal all over the place. So a race of beings who are essentially allergic to cold iron, or they have some religious or cultural reason why they don't use metal for whatever reason. What if a particular form of substance is sacred to them? Like the Quam, for instance, are a reasonably good race that's fine to deal with. Unfortunately, they're all obsessed with finding bits of their broken goddess locale, and if that happens to be a shard of it in your magic item or in you, they will stop at nothing to get it back. So in that regards, they turn very evil very quickly. That's one of my best suggestions, is give them some sort of focus and keep it relatively simple and see how it goes. Don't just make it about their physical appearance and things like that, and don't make them basically like Star Trek, funny looking humans. I'd also say avoid them not being able to speak a recognizable language. Telepathy is fine, but and of course everything's got dark vision these days. Thanks, Lord Mars. Ideas to keep Mercane relevant. I understand why they were sidelined, but I think they are cool. Yeah, they are cool. Mercane and Arcane, for sure. Yeah, put them in there. Mostly as NPCs. Character classes and things, I think, are getting expansions and things, but they're relatively easy to homebrew, and really the rule sets that we've got coming up are going to make it so much easier to homebrew things, because they'll have these generic stuff, and then they'll have all this sort of floating things, like the feats will be more like class features without a class for first level characters. Thanks, Comic Nut. Good to see you back in the land of the living. Question, what sort of materials would you use for black magic ritual, i.e. something a hag or a lich would use? Well, obviously sacrifice of living things is a major component, and basically siphoning their soul energy through the ritual in exchange, and so that they don't have to give up anything of their own. So this is the reason why you have group rituals and things, is because the cost on the physical being and the mental being of the caster is absorbed by the group. And of course, in sacrifices with cultists and things, it's an individual who bears the full weight of it, where you have the classic dagger above the person, and the magical ritual. The idea behind that is that the energy of somebody is amplified when they die, because their soul is releasing from their body. So killing them actually gives you a double boost of whatever potential energy you're using from them. I borrow this, of course, from the Palladium role-playing game, which has got far more detail about potential psychic energy, magical circles, ley lines, cosmological events, full moons and lunar eclipses and equinoxes and stuff like that, which Dungeons & Dragons doesn't really go into because it's a little bit satanic for the general populace. Other things are like using alchemical principles from Taoist religion, where they have you drink mercury and arsenic and mixed with wolfsbane and blah, blah, blah as an immortality potion. Well, in black magic rituals, that sort of stuff actually works. So, yeah. And of course, summoning evil forces. Classic example is where the sorcerer in Conan is summoning demonic forces to heal Conan and bring him back from the brink of death. And he says there's a terrible curse attached to this. So a ritual that does something in exchange for some sort of heavy penalty that the player is going to have to pay later, unpredictably. And that could be the DM basically goes, that's a crit fail. Ha 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 ha. Thanks, Menring. What is the best way to do a retake on a classic monster like Appearance and stuff, Gnolls or Ixatzar Chittles? One of the best ways is to put them in a different environment. So you have an aerial bugbear, like a flying owlbear, for instance, an owlbear that can glide, an owlbear that's an aquatic seal, for instance, semi-aquatic owlbears, an owl seal, something like that, Yeah, Palladium is a lot more thorough when dealing with Magic. And one of the things I have planned for 2023 is to expand my content that I'm delivering to you, because I really want to talk about other role-playing games and stuff that I'm even more of an expert on than Dungeons and Dragons. I use the channel to explore and learn Dungeons and Dragons as a scholarly sort of thing that I'm sharing with you, and building a resource where people can learn alongside with me. And over the last 8 years, I've built up quite a resource. So with those skills for research and my knowledge of Palladium, for instance, I want to really shatter a lot of people's preconceptions about the first megaversal rule system that we ever saw, aside from GURPS, I think just sort of tweaked in there before Palladium. But Palladium has been almost unchanged since the very beginning, with new iterations and things. We have Rifts was really the major point where it sort of went sort of gonzo. But the iteration before Rifts, before they went to the sort of mega damage system, was where I got all my sort of cool stuff. So I use it for supers games and low level supernatural games, and ninjas and super spies and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Robotech and all that sort of stuff is all tied into it. And it's I've been playing that as long as I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I've actually been DMing Palladium games longer than I've been DMing Dungeons and Dragons games. I was originally a player that didn't really understand the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, and then later on I sort of learned it by about 3.5 edition. I was a DM. A CLL, yeah. Gift reskinned as a TMNT Triceraton comes to mind. Yeah, that would be awesome. That's perfect. Yeah, Kikastuke, I did lose weight. I've lost a lot of weight, about 20 kg or so. And the method I'm not going to discuss with you because I don't recommend it. It's not medically advisable. I'm not built like you. Don't do what I did. Is that a mimic behind you? No, this is my mimic mic. This is my mic called Mimic mic. Mimic. If there's anybody out there who is very good at custom molding polyurethane foam, get in touch with me. I have a business idea for you. Will I be doing videos on the new playable races? Yes, I will. And I also really need to get around to doing some more character class videos as well. Tribbles are the bards of the Star Trek universe. Hey, Blue Wraith, welcome to the channel. Thank you very much. Yeah, the Nine Hells series is particularly good. What was that, Moonring? Where your red dragon? Oh, the red dragon is on the shelf just behind me there. It's a little hard to see because it's a little further away. But he's there. Whoa, thanks, Matt Nerdy. Thank you very much. I really enjoy your regular comments on my videos, by the way. Yeah, Bards is a particularly good one because addressing song magic and the high magic of the elves is a really broad topic, actually. The elven tradition of magic is really what the Bardic school is all about when you think about it. Fey magic and harmony and equivalency is really at the basis of both alchemy and also bardic magic. So there's a reason why singing is integrated into bardic magic so heavily, because it's from the elven tradition. No, I don't read the SCP archives. I should. I probably get a lot of resources and inspiration from it, but I just have so much to do in Dungeons and Dragons itself. I can't really absorb a lot of content outside of that. But I really like a lot of stuff. In many ways, my work to make these videos is a sacrifice of other aspects of the hobby, which I don't get to explore the same way other people do. But that's okay. That's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff I can't cover because I have to read everything that exists and everything that's coming out. Hey, thanks, Adam. Looking forward to your new videos on the Spelljammer races. Yeah. One of the things I found really weird with the box set, there's a couple of things there which I'm just made me scratch my head a bit. One was the plasmoids. and their ability to generate a prehensile pseudopod, for instance, and it's got the ability to manipulate objects and lift objects and things. It's supposed to be prehensile, and yet it can't be used to cast magic. And I can't for the life of me think of why. Can you? So maybe that's something that they could work on. But I think Spelljammer is, we're going to see some expansions on that probably, because they're leaning very heavily into it. Never buy a jammer helm from a Rusk with a mustache. What's wrong with mustaches? Do you planning on making videos on less known kinds of supernatural arts and D&D cosmology, like shadow element used by Shadowcaster, true name magic, or runes from the Mystara setting? Yeah. A lot of that is sort of integrated into the D&D monster lore videos that I do, and particularly stories about Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms history and things as well. And I'm more concentrating on just getting the local, like the new audience really interested in the rest of Forgotten Realms outside of the Sword Coast. Particularly the concentration I had on the southern coast and exploring other far-reaching areas of the Forgotten Realms with that series of videos where I was talking about the sage's journey from Candlekeep on his quest to reach Karatua. And yeah, I'll probably turn that into a something at some point. I don't know. We'll see. Essentially, I do what I want. So when I'm talking about future projects and stuff, take it with a grain of salt, because I always have to stick with constantly producing good quality, well-researched lore videos with good artwork and good sound quality for you to enjoy. That's my bread and butter. That I know this. I know never to deviate from this, and you can guarantee that I'm going to keep making those forever. Okay, so that's the main focus of my channel. Everything else is completely secondary, and if anything impacts my production of those usual production of videos, it gets sidelined pretty quickly. So rest assured, nothing major is going to change on my channel. I might add an additional alternative channel where I'm discussing other games aspect, where I'm crafting things, painting miniatures, having more live streams, that sort of thing. And I think it might be a good idea for me to set up a separate channel for my audio books type stuff, where I'm reading out the Dragon Tale stories, and expand on that, so that essentially with the agreement with Wizards of the Coast, you're restricted, if you're doing it properly and following the rules of the guidelines and community guidelines and things, and the actual agreement that Wizards of the Coast has with content creators is you can use their material as long as you provide it to people for free, not locked behind a paywall. And that limits things that people who are content creators can do. With the Dragon Tales and me audio reading books and stories and things, I'm not restricted in that way. So I can have a separate channel where there's free content every month, like one free Dragon video for every Dragon Tales video for everybody to watch, where I'm taking materials from the now discontinued Dragon magazine and bring it to you in an easily digestible format that you can enjoy commuting to work or at your job and stuff. And that's really my solution to not being able to really monetize blog posts and podcasts and things like that very well. They're not very well integrated with like Google AdSense and stuff like that. And I don't do promotions and things like that. I don't do product promos and stuff on my channel. You may notice that I don't need to. And my usual response to people coming at me and saying, will you promote my Steam game or Idle Heroes or Shadow Legends or whatever the hell it is just go buy a Google ad slot. You're asking individual creators to do content for you is really robbing the entire community of content creators of their revenue by not buying Google ad slots. It jeopardizes the entire platform. So I don't need to do product promotions. You've already got adverts which are inserted into my videos. I don't feel the need to put anything that you can't just skip. So that's my policy, and that's always going to stick like that. But with the audio and narration aspect of things, I can expand on some of the features that YouTube actually provides me. So if you're a member of my channel, then you will get bonus member-only content, which is something that I can't do with Dungeons & Dragons lore, but I can do with the audiobooks and stuff like that. So I can have things like members will contribute stories, and I'll be able to read them to all of the other members, for instance. And that could be advanced material, or it could be material that members only ever get to see, or something that I release to the public much later. So there's those options which I can explore on another channel, but it's got to problem where it may clutter up my existing lore content and stuff that I put out on my main channel. So that's really the only reason why I would start expanding into that. Also, as my channel grows, I'm now a YouTube partner properly, so I get a representative to help me out with the channel if there's any problems and things, and they get to advise me and help me out with setting up stuff like that as well while I concentrate on producing content. You like the new space? Yeah, that's kind of funny actually. If you've a friend of Stephen Picorni on Facebook, he's renovating his new house, and his house has a roof that looks almost exactly like mine. So mine's like the outhouse version of his mansion. The complicated story about why I'm here and what this space is and why it may be very temporary is because this is a property owned by my family that was previously a rental. And I was living in a separate flat that was attached to the main sort of house on the orchard that my parents own, and I was looking after them and helping them out. They are now selling the orchard, and so if anybody's interested in buying an orchard in New Zealand, go check it out. And in the meantime, I've moved out of the granny flat there so that that could be rented to somebody else, and this lovely lady is moving into there. And I've moved into this flat because essentially we couldn't rent it out because there's other alterations and improvements we needed to make to the property to make it legal to rent to somebody else. I don't have to do that because I'm a member of the family, and so I've just got a private rental agreement with my parents, and I pay them for this, and they don't have to make improvements and things because the plan is when they sell the orchard, they're going to either demolish or move this building off this property, and then they're going to build their retirement home on this property here. And at that point, I'm going to move away, but that's probably, I don't know when that'll happen. It could be up to a year from now. So yeah, get used to this space for however long it lasts. Yeah, I wish I had the money to buy an orchard in New Zealand myself. Yeah, 5th edition as it is ending in 2024. This is true, kinda. It's still backwards compatible. That's what they say. So yeah, and it's very funny that they've been schooled not to say the word edition. I mean, you just pay attention and try to force them to say edition change. They will not say it. They've been told very, very firmly, don't say edition. Call it an evolution or an iteration or a version or a next step or something like that, or but don't call it an edition. Adam, thank you. I was wondering, can plasmids taste food? Because the description says they need to eat, but do like an amoeba. Yeah, no, they don't. So essentially they just absorb and encase a package of nutrients, and then their body absorbs it, and then they spit it out. So they don't have a centralized nervous system and things like that. They are a proper ooze. Do you think Monsters Ecology will ever come back? What do you mean, Minring? From Wizard of the Coast or from me? When I was getting into D&D, it was your Dragon Lore videos that helped me out a lot in the questions I had in mind. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Crystal. Don't call it a comeback, yeah. It's 5.1. I like it, Ian. Yeah, it is very open. It's actually really good for sound quality, believe it or not. I thought there'd be like more echo. You can sort of pick up an echo, but it's not that bad. There's not a lot of surfaces, and these rafters actually break up the sound quite well. You can kind of tell because if you shine light sources around, it does the same sort of thing that sound does. And when you shine light and there's lots of breaking up of shadows, it sort of indicates that the sound's going to get broken up too. Races don't just give stat bonuses, backgrounds do, and backgrounds give a free feat. Yeah, but the free feat from backgrounds will be limited to first level feats. So they won't include a stat bonus, and they'll be more like a simplified version of a class ability, like healer or musician. So musicians will be able to play music and give inspiration points to party members up to their proficiency bonus. But these are options that are going to be play tested, so they may not survive into whatever Dungeons and Dragons one Dungeons and Dragons morphs into. So it's very much up to us. So they're going to give us a lot of really interesting options. There's going to be a lot of arguments and debates and stuff going on. And this is the time where we're going to have to really pay attention to what Wizard of the Coast is saying to us and providing to us and give them our feedback. This is the democracy of consumerism. So talk with your votes and talk with your dollars. Are you aware of the Beholder Big Luigi? Nope, doesn't ring a bell. No, I haven't seen any talk about a playable Poison Dusk Lizard Folk. How would an awakened plant communicate? Plants communicate with chemicals, so you'd be able to smell. One example of that is Dragon Bait, who is a saurian creature that's associated with the Land of Chult and the quest for the Tomb of Horrors and the Asarik and Artis Simba. And he communicates via smell. So smells have different meanings, and awakened plants may communicate that way, but they could also, they've got a vascular system. They can, they've got air exchange and stuff. So their leaves can make squeaking sounds and things. The main thing is awakened plants are really, really, really accelerated. So think about a plant, right? In order to awaken a plant, you have to speed it up to human speed. Otherwise, an awakened plant that's still working at plant speed could be talking to you, but you wouldn't be able to understand it because it takes 5 hours to say hello. The treants in Lord of the Rings are a great example of that. Treants speaking in Old Entish, for instance, takes them half a day to say hello because they're working at plant speed. Right? So, yeah. But be reasonable. You want to make them playable. Well, this is the thing. We do know what they're going to do next, James, and I'm very, very thankful for Wizard of the Coast for finally stopping with the cloak and dagger bullshit and actually announcing the book lineup that they've got coming up for 2023. This is fantastic. It's a pseudopod, so only spell-like abilities. Pseudo spells. Right, yeah, that makes sense. Very funny. Are you going to do a video going over the different types of Spelljammer ships at some point? No, I think more like a more comprehensive guide to ship combat and how to do it really easily and not like sweat the small stuff. Really? I mean, it's like people are getting bent out of shape about the rules for ship-to-ship combat, but how often do they actually combat? Like, have you ever had a sword fight with a monster while you're riding on a horse in your game? No. So ships are really platforms that your adventures are riding around on. And if you want to play a ship-to-ship combat game, there's plenty of side games that are outside of Dungeons & Dragons which do it a hell of a lot better, because really what you're talking about is a skirmish game. It's a ship skirmish game, because you're going to need some sort of a physical representation to do that. So why not just use pre-existing skirmish rules? Easy. Are you complaining that you don't know how to homebrew, or do you just expect the Wizard of the Coast to hand you everything? I mean, granted, we need some basic rules, but we do have basic rules for it. It doesn't have to be overly complex. Could Ataturk be made into a player races? Are you talking about the multi-armed species that I made a video about? Kind of starfish looking things. It's a pirate's life for me. Oh. Yeah, but the average 5e group is allergic to playing anything that's not 5e. That's certainly a take. But is that their fault or ours? The rules in the new book are extremely simple. Yeah, they are. It's a supplement. It's not a gazetteer. So they're not including, why would you include all of the rules for ship-to-ship combat in a Spelljammer setting if not everybody is going to use Spelljammer? This is the problem with edition drift, right? So you don't really want to include the core rules for a major aspect of the game in a supplement for a specific setting. You want that in the core rulebooks. Am I wrong? So my prediction is we're going to see that in the new Dungeon Master's Guide. So why would they put it into the Spelljammer setting, which is designed to work with the new iteration of the game? Not edition, iteration, evolution. yeah, why have something if most people are going to ignore it, or they're not going to pick up that supplement or use it, so they would not have it? Or like, why do you want them to put it in there and then reprint it in the Dungeon Master's Guide? See what I mean? Did you say edition bash or edition what? Edition bashing. Yeah. So bashing an edition. So saying, I don't play this edition, I won't have anything to do with it, I ignore all lore from it, blah, 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 blah. That's sort of like posting on social media that you don't want to play 5th edition, you only want to play 2nd edition. About 5% of the people who care don't. So stop saying that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you're playing. Nobody cares. Nobody. Ever. Nobody ever did. They should really just have like a group on Facebook of people who bitch and moan about the latest edition and say that they're never ever going to play it and just like all agree with each other. Fantastic. Circle jerk. Why won't they call it 6th edition? Because an entirely new edition is not backwards compatible per se. So you'd need to convert everything from one edition to another. That's really the major differences between the major editions. So 3rd edition and 4th edition were very different kettles of fish. 3rd edition and 2nd edition were very different kettles of fish. 5th edition is another kettle of fish, and and what we're going to be seeing is we've had a lot of gazetters that have released a lot of scattered rules and options, and now it's time to consolidate, go back to the community, say what is actually working, what's not working. It's about time that we re-examined everything, ask the community what's working, and fine-tune the game to perfection. Always been. I'm not knocking people who play older editions of the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking people who play older editions of the game. I played all the editions of the game, okay? I'm not knocking any of the older editions or people who restrict themselves to just playing 2nd edition. I totally understand that. That's fine. Just don't go into 5th edition groups and shit on them. That's all I'm saying. Stay in your lane. If you're not interested in it, really, if you're not contributing to it, create, don't destroy. Don't go in there with a negative attitude just to shit on people who are trying to enjoy a new thing. That's all I'm saying. Edition bashing is antisocial behavior. It's not welcome in D&D groups, and it's time that people like me, community influencers, turn around and point at you and say, hey, stop trolling the majority of the new players of the game. You're not doing yourself any favors, and you're actually turning them away from valuable resources from the older editions of the game, which you're gatekeeping. Okay? So stop fucking doing that. Stop it. Because I'm going to turn around and I'm going to snap you, and I'm going to remove all your comments from the groups that I'm involved in. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm not knocking your enjoyment of the game. I'm just saying I'm not going to tolerate you knocking other people's enjoyment of stuff that you don't pay for, you don't involve yourself in, you don't contribute to, and you have no business in. Kikastu, hello, thank you. How do you feel about taking magic items from PCs? I've had one taken by another PC, no less, and I'm feeling robbed. It was essential to my build, and it wasn't anything that was abused, so I don't know why DM said okay. That's up to you and your friends. That's a friendship problem. That's not a rules problem. So I have nothing to say about it. I don't know your group. I don't know your friendships. I don't know how long you've known each other. I don't know these specific individuals. I don't know whether somebody slept with somebody's ex-girlfriend. That's not a rules problem. That's a personal problem. So deal with it person to person. Don't go asking other people to solve your relationship problems. It doesn't often work. You need to just man up and talk about it with them. Communication is the key, and mutual respect. They may not even be aware that it bothered you. Yeah. All right. I think I pretty much covered everything that I want to talk about. I'm very excited with the new division of the Arcane, Divine, and Primal spells. I'm very interested in what they're doing with the origins and the new background feats. I'm very interested in how they're basically going to pare down the races to core generic races. So you're not going to have anything edition specific or setting specific in the player's handbook. The player's handbook will be setting what do you call it, agnostic, which is cool. So we're not going to see any Wizard of the Coast's concentration on Sword Coast sort of stuff in the new edition of the player's handbook, I don't think. Yeah. Anyway, that's it from me. It's been mostly me ranting at the camera. And thanks for everybody who tuned in. Thank you very much for all the live chats. It makes a huge difference. And yeah, look forward to more content coming out from me. And I'll catch you guys very soon.